Now that it's a Smissmas season, I'd figured I'd get out this video, even though I was supposed to get it out during Scream Fortress. Anyway, with that little prelude out of the way, I'm gonna start the video. So, Team Fortress 2 has a large amount of game modes. They're split into two main categories: core game modes and alternative game modes, excluding Man vs. Machine. The core game modes seem to be the modes that Valve wants to promote, but the majority of them are actually good. Payload, Attack, Defend, and King of the Hill are all good, fair, balanced, and fun game modes. Sure, there are some bad maps in these game modes pools, for example, Junction, or Hoodoo, or Whatville. Then there's Control Points, which is pretty meh. And lastly, Capture the Flag, which, just watch this Uncle Dane video that I have linked in the description. It explains the flaws with that game mode much better than I ever will be able to. Then there's the alternative game modes, which seem to be game modes that Valve wants to bury under the others. Or just game modes that don't fit in with, like, the main composition, main game modes of TF2. I'm not entirely sure. But they're all pretty fun, even if some game modes aren't very balanced. Manpower. But in this category, there's a game mode just labeled miscellaneous game modes. Game modes that were pretty much tossed to the wayside by Valve. Some of these aren't even different game modes, with Probed and Two Fort Invasion just being Koth and CTF maps respectively. One of these game modes is Player Destruction, one of the most enjoyable modes in Team Fortress 2's pool. Although it's fun and simple, there's a very major problem with the game mode, and it isn't even really the game mode's fault. So, there are three big problems with Player Destruction, and two of them are intertwined. These intertwined problems are A, the game mode isn't promoted enough, and B, nobody wants to play the game mode, creating a vicious cycle. Let me explain. Nobody wants to play the game mode because it isn't promoted, and it isn't promoted because nobody wants to play it. Another problem is the absence of maps, which isn't really a third problem at all. Kind of like a branch of problem A, which, along with problems A and B, causes the third major problem. People somehow don't understand the game mode. Complete with an explanation of the more complicated aspects of the Player Destruction game mode. Although it's a simple game mode, literally just being team deathmatch but with extra steps, so to make it that the game mode actually takes skill, instead of just being winning for shooting people, instead of like a coherent objective. In other game modes, like Valorant or CSGO or TF2's Arena mode, this works because you don't respawn after death. But in regular team deathmatch, you still respawn, so it just devolves into sitting at the enemy spawn and killing any player who dares exit. Player Destruction makes it so that you actually have to do something after getting killed so you can win, and for some reason, people don't like that. That, or they somehow don't understand team deathmatch. There are some who don't understand the unique parts exclusive to Player Destruction, but most of them are easy to understand as well, like, I don't know, maybe moving to the bright glowing thing in the center of the map. So this little bit of the video is going to be an explanation of the basic parts of Player Destruction, complete with an animation, as well as having an explanation of the more complicated aspects of the game mode, as well as an explanation of the heads-up display. When you kill someone, they drop a pickup. To pick it up, you need to walk over to it and touch it. just like a health kit or ammo box. When you pick it up, it gets added to your personal point tally. To score for your team, you need to deposit your points in a central area that opens up every so often. Every point that you deposit is 1 point to your team. If you die, the pickup that drops will not only have a point representing you, but every single point you had in your tally will also be represented by that pickup. That's the basic mechanics of player destruction. So this is your HUD when playing player destruction. Of course, you have the normal stuff like your health, player model, and meters like Cloak or Uber. On your player model, there's a small green bar that tracks how many points you have. Sometimes you'll have a golden star on the bar, and the reason for this will be explained later. In the center bottom of the screen, there's a two-tone team-colored bar, similar to the CTF bar, but without the intelligence circles. The bars are empty at the start, with the respective team's point tally. The bright team-colored parts are the team's progress bars to the end, which marks when a team wins the round. The numbers at the end of the whole bar are how many points the bright bar represents, aka the number of points your team has already scored. The dark team-colored hatched bar represents the amount of points that each team has that haven't been deposited. Above the main bar is a small dark team-colored bar that shows the number the hatched bar represents, aka the amount of undeposited points your team has. The first team to get to the bright bar to the end of the main bar wins. So, remember when I talked about that funny little gold star on the green bar?
Hey, that rhymes.
Shut up. Well, now it's time to explain what that means. It means that you are the team leader.
Which is pretty self-explanatory. How do we even get it out?
And basically, the team leader is the person with the biggest personal point tally. Whoever has the biggest personal point tally on each team is given the team leader buff. Buff is in air quotes. If you were looking at me in person, I would have done the air quotes. Anyway, it's in air quotes because it also has a couple debuffs, if you can call them debuffs. The team leader effect has 3 effects that make it up. The first is that the team leader is outlined to both teams, allowing enemies to know the location of the team leader at all times. The second is that the team leader's personal point count is also shown to everyone, on both teams. This doesn't really affect the game like the outline does, but it's still a thing that happens. The last effect is that the team leader emanates healing to themselves and all teammates in a certain radius around them. This healing is around equal to a medigun beam, and it also provides overheal. Cloaked spies who are the team leaders will still be outlined and have their points shown and provide healing to friendlies. When a disguised spy is team leader, they will not be outlined, have their points shown, or provide healing to enemies or friendlies, although nobody on the spy's team will be given the team leader buff unless the spy is made to be not the team leader anymore. There are 2 ways for someone to be made to not be the team leader. The first is somebody else accumulating a larger personal point tally than you by just picking them up while you're playing the game normally, or you depositing your points so that someone else becomes the team leader. The second way is if the team leader dies, which the team leader buff is then transferred to the person with the next biggest point tally. The only 2 ways a team won't have a visible leader is if nobody on the team has a personal point tally at the time, or if a disguised spy is the team leader. Possible major reason people won't play the game mode is a bad experience with a single map in a pool, or maybe just a single match. That's not really the game mode itself's fault. In all honesty, all the maps in the pool are mostly pretty good. There's a gem and some not as good ones, but, you know, overall pretty good. Each map also has some unique pickups that vary between maps. Watergate has beer, Pit of Death and Curse Cove have 2 different colored souls, which are basically skulls that have fiery glow. Monster Bash has buckets full of body parts. Farmageddon has Weed Killer, and Snowville has oversized presents. So, anyway, because I have the big problem in the mechanics out of the way, I'd figured I'd have a partially unscripted segment with a discussion of the maps. Okay, so, quick disclaimer, this footage isn't mine, because literally nobody except for bots, plays the map, plays Watergate, and nobody plays it on community servers either, so I couldn't get footage myself, so I got footage that was older from the YouTuber Crown. The spelling makes me want to pronounce Crone, but I'm pretty sure it's Crown. Plays official TF2 maps and covers the Custom Towards the Duty fundraisers by Potato.tf, and also just plays custom game modes. So go check them out, because I actually like it. Anyway, Watergate is pretty good, but it is also a little confusing. So, it can be hard to get around and can feel like a bit of a maze sometimes. But, in all honesty, not super duper confusing. In most places it's pretty straightforward, other than the way back part. That's the only way I can figure out how to describe it. The way back part of the map, like the part of the map that's really far to the back, with the sewers and the big verticality. Speaking of verticality, the verticality is pretty fun, allowing for some pretty nice, fun drop-offs, and like jumping down into the bay, into the little water channel bay as a pyro with a neon annihilator and just killing 2 people. Like, I'm just imagining this. I feel like that would be really fun. Or like rocket jumping up and then carpet bombing the entire enemy team. And also like probably a pretty good sniping spot too. And you can lay sticky bombs all over the place. This idea, at least to me, strikes me as the most unique out of all the player destruction maps. Delivering beer to the aliens so that they leave Earth alone is, in all honesty, just a hilarious concept. The moving UFO, with how I like the UFO a lot. So it moves slowly while it's not a static place, so it's harder to lock down, harder to defend, and I'm pretty sure both teams can capture in it. And I also like how the beam slowly brings you up, and you start depositing more and more the closer to the top of the UFO you are. I can't remember what happens when you actually get to the UFO, but I think you just stay there until you die or like leave it. And I like how it's not like janky or anything. Like the movement, you can move up, like you can get sucked in by the beam while the UFO is moving, and also be using your own controls, and it's like not janky at all. It's not like really laggy or hard at all. And the layout around it, with like the channel and the tugboat, I think that's a tugboat, might be a fishing boat, with the buildings to the side of it, makes it so that it's, again, like not super easy to completely lock down, completely defend. It's pretty hard to really get a good lockdown from the tippy top area, like the big vertical building. Now there's two other spots that come to mind. There's the side building with the window overlooking the boat, with the staircase in the middle. It serves as a pretty good sentry spot, pretty good like condensing spot too, like a place where you can focus all your energy on. And then the other one is the holdout point used in this footage, where Crown like uses a mini sentry and kind of locks down that little area. It doesn't really lock down the point, but it's still a good spot for your team to condense. And lastly, the announcer's pretty funny. It's literally just an AI voice that just talks at you.
The enemy is in the beam!
Sounds pretty funny, right? Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about Watergate. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Watergate. Goodbye. So, Pit of Death was one of the first 3 Halloween player destruction maps released in the Scream Fortress 2018 update. It was... I don't really have any strong feelings about it either way. The only thing I really dislike about it is a really annoying sniping spot, but that's pretty much it. Also, the Hell section. The Hell section has the really annoying stairs, which are just like really easily campable. So if one team can get control of the stairs in the Hell section, they can just stop the enemy team from depositing the points. And I don't really like that. But it also makes it so that unless you have a medic on you, it's pretty much impossible to get out, because to camp you will have to sacrifice some damage. In the overworld segment, pretty much it just seems like it devolves around to mostly a King of the Hill match centered on the shack overlooking the cliff, and the 2 teams fighting over who can control the shack, and by extension the titular Pit of Death, which serves as the portal into the Hell deposit area. And then the flank route, like the route on the other side with that like more industrial building, I think it's pretty cool. I wish more people would use it, but it's really, really annoying when an engineer just puts a sentry there for no reason. Like, when the entire fight is happening over at the pit, why are you putting a sentry all the way down there? I like the little areas where you can hold out. I think it's just, like, overall pretty balanced and fine, except for the one sniping spot that can snipe you from, like, halfway across the map. But that's pretty much it. Also, this part isn't scripted, so sorry if it's much lower quality than the other parts. Anyway, I don't really have any hard feelings either way about it. It's just a fine map. I mean, I can have fun playing it, but I don't really have any hard feelings. Monster Bash is pretty lackluster. The visuals are definitely the highlight of the map, and the old like Victorian creepy castle in the mountains goes very well with the whole Frankenstein theme. And the area in the center of the map is also pretty cool. The deposit area and the pit of parkour below it. I think that's a pretty cool area, and how you can only access the pit of parkour when the deposit area isn't being covered by the big shield. Also, I think the deposit area is one of those deposits where, on this deposit area, it's unlike the other two, I think. It's unlike the original. I'm not sure about player destruction, but it's unlike the original Watergate in that as long as one player from the enemy team is standing in the area, no one can deposit points. Like if the entire blue team's there, but there's one spy that they can't see, then no one can capture and deposit. The rest of the map is kind of like a claustrophobic maze, and I'm not really a fan of it. It's very confusing, and when it isn't confusing, it's very easy to just get camped, and like it's pretty easy to spawn camp too. That's pretty much it. I'd have to say my favorite part of the map is the part where it's like outside by just a little bit, and you can see out there, and like you can see down the mountains, and I think it's really cool. And on the spawn camping, like if you can divvy up your team, you can pretty easily lock down spawn. I mean, unless you have your entire team focusing on spawn camping and not actually capping, then yeah, it's pretty easy to just lock down the entire spawn zone. Okay. Apparently, there's something called Elizabeth II in here. Of course, I'm looking at it, and it's clearly a reference to Audrey II from Little Shop of Horrors. I do not know where this is in the map, but it's a pretty cool Easter egg, I guess. And it also uses the magic spells of I think it's a potion. The magic flasks, magic potions on the map. I think that's also a pretty cool aesthetic choice. I've personally never caught a glimpse of Elizabeth II, but it's a reference to Little Shop of Horrors, and I think it's a funny reference. So that's pretty much it on Monster Bash. It has really cool visuals, and the center area, actually, let me talk a little bit more about that. So the platform itself, I think, is really cool, and the pit below, but I think it's like a little too vertical. Like, I think the verticality here is a detriment, and it's really easy to just spam down with spells if you can, or just spam down with rockets or sticky bombs. But the actual platform itself, I think, is pretty cool, and I like the shield around it. The pit of parkour, where you have to fall below the platform, and then you're sent to a hell area where you constantly take damage, and you have to avoid swinging spikes to get your crit boost. I think that's pretty cool. It's probably the most balanced way of getting a crit boost, I'd say. Instead of just doing the objective, you actually have to go out of your way to get a crit boost, which I like. So, overall, it's a pretty good, it's a bit of a lackluster map, with the pit being the only real highlight for me. And the visuals are definitely the saving grace with the whole castle, Victorian Frankenstein era thing, and the buckets of body parts that they use, as pickups, as well as the flask potions, which is one of only 2 maps to have unique potions, so I think that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's it on Monster Bash. So, first off, the theme of Cursed Cove is probably the coolest out of any of the maps ever in TF2. The pirate theme is amazing, and I'd say, like, a pirate theme would be... The idea of a pirate theme map is the coolest, but it's not really executed super well. But that's pretty much all I have to say about pirate theming. Anyway, to the actual, like, map design and layout. The map is pretty cramped in a lot of places. It's, yeah, pretty cramped. Sometimes it kind of feels like a maze, you know? Like, it feels like a cramped maze, and I still don't have a full understanding on the layout of the map. It's a lot like Watergate, because it does have a degree of verticality, most of the others don't. And it has a moving deposit area, just like Watergate. But this moving deposit area is a deposit area portal. It's another portal that sends you to Davy Jones' locker, which is a really cool underwater themed like hell, but it's like you're underwater, deep in the water, and you don't take damage until the portal leaves and the locker starts to shrink, which closes in on you, and then you take damage once you're outside of the locker, drowning damage. When the locker starts shrinking, you take damage when you're still in it, and outside you take drowning damage. Instantaneously, you don't have to wait. And the little center deposit area, oh yeah, it has a center deposit area inside of the locker where you stand to deposit your points, which I think is pretty cool. And walking out through a door frame back into the real world is also cool. A large part of the map is taken up by water, which opens up opportunities for pyro sharking and, like, hiding there, you know? And, like, nobody really goes there, so you can just, like, flank around the entire enemy team, because, like, there's a lot... The boundaries extend way farther into the sea than I would have expected. And, speaking of the verticality of the map, the tower and, like, the bridge between them, the bridge between the 2 buildings, that area is actually pretty good for locking down Davy Jones' locker. Not super good, but, like, you can kind of control Davy Jones' locker as it's coming through there. Although, unless you're a soldier with insane reflexes, it can be also pretty easy to get rid of you if you're up there. Also, there's a spot at the bay that's it's really easily defendable, really hard to attack, that pretty much covers the locker as it moves. The Flying Dutchman, sorry, not the locker. The Flying Dutchman, which is actually the portal, and I've been calling it the locker this entire time, whoops. Yeah, it can lock down the Flying Dutchman for... Let me think. Yeah, around half, I think half sounds right, yeah. Around half of its run through the overworld area. Anyway, the shipwreck deposit area in the underwater section is kinda a little bad, because, like, whichever team gets there first can kinda just hold it down completely, because they can see you coming from any real angle. And the last, this map is pretty cool, though, and, yeah, I just can't, all my experiences with this map are pretty good. It's a pretty good map, and even if it's a little confusing. And also it has Davy Jones himself as the announcer, which I think is really cool. Also, there's this little spot, this little balcony platform outside of like a house, a shop building next to the bay on your team side, and it looks like I once saw a guy just set up his entire nest there, all 4 buildings in Rancho Relaxo, and it looked pretty nice, pretty cool, pretty cozy. So yeah, I think overall, I think that's pretty funny and cool, and I think Cursed Cove is a pretty good map, and it's probably one of the coolest maps out of all of them, especially when you're inside the Davy Jones locker. And the Flying Dutchman rowing, like sailing through the land and coming out of the bay is really like epic looking. Anyway, that's it for Cursed Cove. Next up is Farmageddon. So, Farmageddon. First off, the farm aesthetic looks a lot like early TF2 maps. It reminds me a lot like early TF2 maps, except it's night. And I like that. It looks like some of the farm maps, like Harvest, and I guess 2 Fort, but not really to that extent. The giant pumpkin in the middle and the weed killer pickups. I like this whole you have to kill the winning pumpkin thing, because it got too big and now it's evil. And the hell inside of the pumpkin, like inside of the pumpkin's stomach, is pretty cool. I like it. Like, it looks great. The whole landscape inside of the pumpkin's stomach is amazing. The platform above the nest, not above the nest, above the pumpkin, like slightly outside the building, but still on that platform, a nest can kind of like lock the pumpkin down, but it still can be taken down easily. The openness of the middle section allows for pretty evenly matched fights. Like, mobile classes can jump around, non-mobile classes can still like do shooting, and sniper can snipe, and spy can stab, and yeah, everyone's pretty evenly matched in the center zone. If one team can like kill the entire enemy team at mid and then get a sentry base up, it does become pretty hard for the other team to push back. And the timer inside the pumpkin, inside the pumpkin's guts, like its innards, there's something very similar to Davy Jones' locker, except it rises up instead of closing, and it's like green pumpkin ooze, and you start taking damage. The inside kind of, like how it's like a little cult area, kind of implies some stuff. I don't know what stuff, but it's pretty weird. And it also has a custom announcer, the Farmers, and the Farmer, which I like. I like this custom announcer probably the most out of any of them. Reminds me a lot of the Bread Space announcer, actually. What is it? Sorry. Lost my train of thought there for a second. I like the carbine, like how if you go back, there's a carbine there with all the blood, and then you can get shredded. And I like how they turn the skeletons into scarecrows, and I think that's really cool. The hitboxes are kind of stuck, and you can get stuck in them when the pumpkin opens. Also, when the pumpkin opens, you can get stuck in the pumpkin's hitbox too, which is not great, not very a good thing, not a very good thing. I'd say out of all the Halloween ones, this one, Farmageddon, is definitely my favorite out of all three. I think it's really cool. Also, I like how the different weed killer pickups represent different things. Like, a small weed killer is like one soul, and a big weed killer is multiple souls, and I think that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's it. That's it on Farmageddon. Now we've only got one more map to cover. The last of these 6 player destruction maps that you can play currently is Snowville, which is hands down one of, if not the most beautiful map in Team Fortress 2. Purely because of the Aurora Borealis skybox. At least that's what I think it's meant to be. And also, it's snow, and I love snow theme maps. Like, I love the snow theme. I'm growing to dislike Viaduct, but I like the other ones. And anyway, other Viaduct is just, it's not the biggest fan. Anyway, Snowville. There are 3 different drop-off areas instead of 1, which combats all the camping that's normally in player destruction. So unless you want to move your entire camping operation to another drop-off point, you can only really cover drop-off points 33% of the time. It's a reskin of Sawmill, which is already a pretty good map, at least to me. And I like it. I think it's like a better Sawmill. It has flank routes that head to the enemy team's deposit area. Like, the red side has a flank route that has a one-way flank route that leads to the blue tower deposit area, and the blue side, hold on, just seeing if yeah, I got my sides right. And then the blue side has a flank route, one-way flank route that leads to the logging station drop-off point. The extended platforms in the main building also provide a bit more, like a better area to like hold, and I guess you can gather your team, and they have the health there too, which is good. Most of the water is pretty frozen over, and I think that's a pretty cool visual. I like how, even though the actual area where the deposit area, the deposit vehicle goes is on the top part of the tower, you can still get it from the bottom of the tower. And I like how the logging mill also has an extended thing. In the middle with the big Christmas tree, I think I just love this map. It got rid of the saws and put in a cool Christmas tree. I like how there's robot pyros carrying around Santa's sleigh, and that you have to deliver presents to Santa's sleigh. I think that's really cool. I'd say my biggest problem with this map is that sometimes your game will lag if you look at the central deposit area with the Christmas tree while the robot pyros and the sleigh are depositing. I also covered this map in a bit more detail in my video, It's That Time of the Year Again, which, I'm probably going to do that every single Christmas. Anyway, that's Snowville, one of my hands-down favorite maps in the entire game. Up there with, like, for me, at least, it's on terms of, like, Moss Rock. It's up there with, like, Moss Rock, Cascade, and Altitude for me. Which, Cascade and Altitude are just some of my other favorite maps that I love a lot. But, like, I think we can all agree Moss Rock is one of the best maps. And for me, Snowville is up there with Mossrock. And it's a darn shame that we can only play this during Smithmas updates, because this map is amazing and beautiful, and I love it so much. Okay, a little preface thing before I start the actual main outro. I kind of took this opportunity to just do like a map review for all the maps. So, I mean, I guess so yeah, this video kind of just evolved into a map review, and I'm sorry, but I liked doing this video. I think it was pretty fun. I'm sorry that it just kind of devolved into a map review. Anyway, so that's what's up with player destruction, and I'd say a lot of the maps in the pool, I'd say a lot of the maps are really good, but I can see how someone would be turned off from the game mode if they had a bad experience on one of the maps, like Monster Bash or Pit of Death or Watergate or even Curse Cove, but I don't see, or even Farmageddon, but I just don't see anyone having a bad time on Snowville. Also, your computer explodes from lag. Anyway, that is my little conclusion. Player destruction. Player destruction. Nobody wants to play it, which makes it which puts it as an alternative game mode. Nobody wants to play it, and nobody's making maps for it because nobody wants to play it. Nobody wants to play it because there aren't any maps for it. It's kind of a vicious cycle. Anyway, that's my conclusion. Now it's outro time. So, that was the problem with player destruction. This video faced a lot of problems, mainly procrastination and me getting sick 6 times during the recording period. Once with COVID. This video's production was kind of a train wreck. Hopefully the video itself isn't a train wreck like the previous long form script video I've done. I also use these avatars that I drew. I don't know, tell me what you think about these avatars I made. I kind of had a lot of trouble making them, so I'd love to hear your feedback, and I'm working on making them better as well. This video has been something I've been wanting to do for almost a year now, and I'm really glad I finally got it out. So, I guess I'll do the music credits after this point. So yeah, here music credits. I'm going to say them in order of appearance. The first one I used was TF2 Intruder Alert, and then the Stardew Valley Library theme, TF2 Intruder Alert, but on a MIDI file. I think that's what it's called. Then it was Henry Stickmin Collection, press start. And, hold on, I'm checking everything. Henry Stickmin Collection, Prison Blues, Henry Stickmin Collection, Locked Up. The underground theme for Terraria, Deadlight District from Left 4 Dead 2, but 2 times speed. Haunted Fortress 2, Otherside from Minecraft, Henry Stickmin Collection, A Casual Stroll from the Henry Stickmin Collection, and the music you're hearing right now is Dance Mr. Funnybones Redux, or Remix. also from the Henry Stickmin collection. Anyway, that is everything. So now I'm going to do the outro that I'm going to do for all these videos, which is Terraria's day theme. Anyway, sorry. Give me your feedback. Send me some feedback. I'd love to hear it. And tell me what you think about these avatars. Maybe I didn't really use them too often. And yeah, hopefully you liked this video a lot. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. And hopefully it turns out better than the other one. And I think it will. Anyway, goodbye everyone watching this video. Bye bye.